from what I saw, I spent an awful lot of time down in Zuccotti Park and covering this in and across New York. And what I saw was people who were previously disparate in thinking what they think coming into one place, rather than people who hadn't been involved in politics before suddenly rising up against the status quo. I think your WTO protesters and your environmentalists and your radicals all came and sat in one place. I don't think people came out of their houses and said, now I must do something about this, as they did in, say, the civil rights movement.
You know, making social change is not like taking an Alka-Seltzer tablet where you put it in a glass of water, it fizzes up, and, 30 seconds later you feel better. This is about building a movement for change, trying to organize people across political lines. I think Charles would have to acknowledge that.
I actually was at Zuccotti Park for 6 weeks. I slept in my car and I went to Occupy Wall Street. It's true, I have had, I don't know what you want to call them, progressive views for many years. But there are people that did come out of their houses. There are people that said, oh my gosh, I felt hopeless, and now I don't feel hopeless. There were activists like me who felt hopeless and said, oh my God, thank God, finally they've come together and have decided to give voice. It's true, there were a lot of activists that all came together, many different groups.
People have not gone home. This movement is growing, and it will grow more. But beyond that, change does not happen necessarily only through the traditional political formats. We've had in our country the experience of the civil rights movement, the anti-war movement, massive expressions of outrage with injustice that did lead to changes, and I think Occupy Wall Street will as well.
I have spoken to people that never thought that anything was possible to be done. And then when the Occupies gathered all over the country and all over the world, we're like, oh my God, there is something that can be done. The power of the people really is greater than the people in power, as Wael Ghonim says. That's my experience.
I haven't seen a movement that in 6 weeks, Charles, led to demonstrations and protests in over 1,000 cities across the world. Even Time magazine, no friend of protest movements, put the protesters as the person of the year because of the way in which this movement has resonated with so many people. I was part of the civil rights movement. If these movements were not considered to be in some way dangerous, you wouldn't have over 6,000 arrests in New York City. You wouldn't have the militarization of the police department, the surveillance across the country, the coordination of surveillance by all these cities. This is a movement that has freaked out the people in power. It's freaked out Mayor Bloomberg, who's a Wall Street guy, and for good reason, because the demands it's making for more economic justice and fairness is an issue that has not been raised by our mass media, has not been raised by the National Review, and has rarely been given the kind of coverage it deserves. The New York Times, for example, on another issue, is showing that 69% of the public opposes staying in Afghanistan and fighting these wars. There's a tremendous amount of disaffection.
I don't really think that voting at this point makes a difference. Only because we have actually a one-party system. It's called the Business Party, and we have two factions, the Democrats and the Republicans.
Let's just suppose, for the sake of argument, Bernardine, that you're right, and it's a one-party system with two wings called the Business Party. Why is it? How can these two statements both be true? There is one party for which almost everyone votes, and the 99% are unhappy with it.
We really don't have a choice, because on an individual basis, we can't really change the system. But as a group, as people coming together, as we the people, we can make change and we can make a difference.
Money is dominating our political process. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees it with these super PACs, with billionaires and millionaires basically dominating campaign finance in so many parts of the country. The Occupy movement is run by the people in it in a democratic manner. It may not be as efficient as you would like. you know, but it is a growing movement, and it's a movement that's debating its principles.
Many thanks to my guests today in Washington and in New York, and thanks to our viewers for watching us here at RT. See you next time, and remember, crosstalk rules.
Tremendous amount.